When someone tells you this film is about a stripper who gets into a relationship with this rich guy, it's impossible not to think about Pretty Woman. And in some ways, it is similar, but this is a more real version of that story. Spoilers ahead. I've seen a handful of documentaries where sex workers of all sorts, but primarily prostitutes, talk about this Pretty Woman fantasy. And I'm not sure if that is because of the movie or it predated it and they just used the name of the movie as a placeholder. What I do know is that it seems like the perfect way out. Technically, Annie is not a prostitute, or at least she doesn't view herself as one. She's a stripper, but still. Baker, the director, is incredibly effective at portraying sex workers of all sorts. Oh, and please subscribe and like this video because I'm pretty sure this is not exactly algorithmically friendly. Well, friendly to the algorithm. You know what I mean. Anyway, as I was saying, Scorsese's gangsters are Baker's sex workers. It is what it is. I think I read that on Letterboxd or something like that. And he does it splendidly. It's very down to earth and real. Usually sex workers are either portrayed in this glorified version or in the worst possible light. Baker shows us how it's not ideal for most people, but it is what they feel they can do at that particular moment or in that particular stage of their lives. And of course, some are forced into that. And I'll link some resources if you know someone who's in that situation or yourself. So yeah, but that's a different topic. And as much as it's not a living hell 24/7, and I'm referring to this strippers specifically from the movie, if a Russian billionaire comes in and tries to give you a lavish lifestyle without having to gyrate to a random old man, then you're definitely taking the chance. I mean, why wouldn't you, right? Guys, we need to talk about how absolutely perfect Mikey Madison is. Wow, and I mean, I'm not really just talking about her body. It's great, of course, sure, but her performance is amazing, guys. It's really, really good. She is Anora. The way she shows us these very complex emotions is just brilliant. You can tell in her eyes that she's not sure about believing Ivan, but you can also tell that she's been waiting for an opportunity like this for a long while. Did she love Ivan, or did she simply love what he represented or what he meant? I think she was willing to love him. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense actually, but it wasn't just about the money, guys. In a way, she liked that he didn't seem to care about what she did for a living. That's what makes the moment when he calls her a prostitute so impactful. Anora thought that he wasn't seeing her like the rest of the world did, but she realized that he actually did. And of course he did. There was a very, 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 very small chance that he actually cared about her. He's a spoiled brat who doesn't care about anything or anyone. There's this part when Mickey talks about her favorite princess, Cinderella, and that's precisely what this is, but a real version of it. She is Cinderella. She's living in not ideal circumstances, has some mean girls around her, and then comes this guy who seems to love her and takes her out of this predicament. But it's not forever, since she only has until midnight. And while it's not literally that, it shares many of the themes of that story. But what mostly sticks out was the rich prince, because as the son of a rich Russian, he technically was the prince of that company, you know? Or he acted like one, maybe. And the short-lived reality of this whole experience. She touched the sky for just a little while. Cinderella did have a happily ever after, but Anora didn't. The last sequence when she's on top of Igor in the car, that's hands down one of the best scenes I've seen in a while. And I watch a lot of movies, guys. The whole symbolism to it is just amazing. It was as if Anora was accepting her reality and going back to what she had to do, letting others use her body. Sure, it was partly because he gave her the ring, but in a way she was putting herself through it again, partly to self-punish for believing she could ever live that reality, and also to try to avoid the time of grief before she had to eventually go back to what she was doing before. She makes it very clear that she doesn't like Igor, but hell, she doesn't like any of those men who pay her to take her clothes off anyway, right? She starts crying on top of this guy while he was technically physically inside of her. I think that just means that as much as she hates that reality, she can't just take that dick out and leave, metaphorically speaking. Even if in that particular case she could, she didn't. Also, her refusal to kiss him, I see it as she just doesn't want to kiss about anyone. And that is something that, from what I understand, is common practice in the sex workers' environment. Maybe I've just watched too many movies and think that's how it goes, but I think it is. I don't know. Either way, she doesn't want to kiss him because perhaps there's still some hope left in her that her situation isn't forever. Or simply she doesn't want to feel any connection to that man. I mean, can you blame her for that? Igor feels bad about her, but he cannot take her out of this situation, so holding her was what's left. And still, he's taking advantage of this whole situation, like every other man around her is taking advantage of her. If you look closely, pretty much everyone is using her as a tool or as an object or as a means to make money, unfortunately. The cinematography is stellar. It's very raw, but also vivid at times, which is weird for a movie like this. There's a moment when you feel like actually floating, and then you're dragged back into reality. I feel very confident when I say this is my favorite version of Cinderella and my favorite Sean Baker film, at least as 2025. In terms of rewatchability, it's a solid 92%. It's not just devastating at the end, but it goes through several emotions and it does it so well that I can't say anything bad about this film, honestly. You can feel every single emotion from it. And it has some sparks of comedy too. How? I don't know, but it does. There's certainly a degree of intimacy in sex. I mean, let's be honest here. But the true moments of intimacy were the ones, at least for Anora, were the ones when they were opening up to each other and just talking. For Anora, her most intimate act was actually believing that she could live this fairy tale, that she was finally getting her shot at some level of normalcy or this fantasy. So yeah, as always, thank you for watching. See you next time.